everybody, welcome back to the Black Suit. GeGe here. If you're new to the channel, I started this channel to help women lawyers like myself and other women professionals by providing tips and guidance based on my experiences and information I've gathered over the years to help women like myself. So today's video, we're going to talk about something that is very important this time of the year, and that is performance reviews. Specifically, I'm going to tell you how to do self-evaluations because that's becoming more popular in the industry and a lot more workers and employees are asked to do it, and there are definitely tricks and ways to do a good self-eval. And I've struggled with this myself, so I thought that I would share with you my experience, what I've come to terms with, what I do now on the self-eval. So if you're interested, stay tuned. So self-evaluations, I think these are really important for advancement in your career, especially now that coronavirus and the pandemic have really caused women to regress a little bit in the workplace. If you're interested on more about that, check out the link I have above here or this side, and be sure to look at that and you'll know what I'm talking about. So anyway, now that women are kind of losing out in the workplace, it's more important than ever to do a good performance self-eval. And you got to think of the performance self-eval as a way for you to tell your boss what you have contributed in a year, because your boss is busy. He or she is not going to remember all the great things you did for the firm or the organization, so you got to be there to tell him every single thing that you've contributed and added to the firm to enhance its operations, its clients. So very important. And the way I like to think of a self-eval is it is a resume, essentially, right? But not for your whole career, just for the year. It's like a year in review. You gotta treat it like the way you would treat a resume, because it's really a time for you to tell your boss why you're awesome, why you're hot stuff, and what you have done to be worthy of getting a raise or a bonus or any type of other compensation, or why you're worthy of being kept in the firm. Because right now, as firms are cutting costs, they're thinking about who can we let go of, right? And you don't want to be the first one on that list. So the performance self-eval is very important for you to show why you deserve more money or why you deserve to keep the current job you have, or maybe even advance in that job. So let's jump into how I've tackled self-evals and what I would recommend. I think the biggest thing to remember is you gotta use your accomplishments and put everything about your accomplishments on that self-eval, because again, it's like a resume. You wanna load it up with all the great things you have done. And so the big accomplishments, of course, are obvious, like if you win a big case, or if you brought in a new case from an existing client, or you brought in a new client. Those are great things to write about. Now, a trick I try to keep in mind is when you're writing about those big things, which are obvious, and those are the traditional things that are worthy of praise, you also want to be talking about the specifics of each of those things, right? You want to talk about, for example, if you want a big case, you want to talk about what exactly about that case was difficult and how did you overcome those difficulties. For example, if you had an opposing counsel who was particularly aggressive, how did you deal with them, right? How did you tackle that situation successfully? You want to write about that. Now, if you had a judge who was difficult, you might also want to talk about how you dealt with a difficult judge, or how you dealt with a difficult client even, because clients can sometimes be very hard to handle, even more so than opposing counsel. So those little details matter a lot. You want to talk about them, and you want to show how you're capable and how you succeeded in the day-to-day even. Not just that you won the case, but what you did on a day-to-day basis that kept the case on track and that helped you ultimately win, or get the great outcome that you ultimately do. It doesn't necessarily need to be a win. Maybe it's a great settlement that was really favorable for your client. We'll talk about those things. And of course, in any self-eval, you want to talk about how much money you've brought in by doing the great things you've done, right? If you won a case, did the client save money, and in saving money they were able to pay their bills on time, and all of that stuff that ultimately enhance your firm, not just your client. So be sure to be thinking about that too. So the big accomplishments obviously matter a lot, right? Because those are the things that your boss will traditionally look for as markers of a good employee. But small accomplishments are also important when it's time to write a self-eval. And I think that for me, I may sometimes overlook the small things. So that's why I'm pointing this out to you guys, so you guys don't make that mistake of leaving out the small things. Because, for example, if you helped plan an internal marketing effort, let's say you started a new blog or you started a new newsletter to distribute internally within your organization, that is something to be proud of. You took initiative, and even though that might not have been billable, you should still get credit for it and recognition. So be sure to put that on your self-eval, because that is, again, worthy of noting. Another example is if you planned a social event. This is something I've done in my previous time as a young associate. You want to put that on your self-eval too, because those social events are important and they do contribute value to the firm, even if they don't contribute any money per se, but that's still recognition that your firm is getting from planning social events for your colleagues internally and for friends and clients and contacts outside the firm. It's really important. It's marketing. Marketing is always important. And anytime you do any sort of non-billable marketing work, that should be information that you include in the self-eval. So don't think that, oh, well, the event was only attended by like 20 people and it didn't generate any money for the firm, so I shouldn't leave it in. Don't think that way. You should definitely leave it in your self-eval, because your boss might think that, wow, this person is a go-getter. Like, beyond winning cases, she is also really good at building relationships. And at the end of the day, more than perhaps our hard technical skills are the soft skills that really help us win out in the long term. Because as we all know, to get clients, you need to be a relationship builder. So definitely don't overlook the small things. And one more point I want to mention here is that you might feel like what you do day to day is so monotonous. How do you talk about it in a way that makes it look like you're contributing to the firm? Well, you really need to think creatively. For example, once upon a time, all I did was document review, right? Maybe some of you have been there. And you just feel like, well, how is this giving value to anything? Think about it in a bigger picture. If you're doing document review day by day, all the time, in a month, even several months, you're still adding value, because all that work is going into a final product, right? Whether it's a motion or a memo, or to build up a slide deck for a client presentation. So think about that ultimate product deliverable that you created using the document review that you did, and talk about how great that final product was and how it would not have been as great as it was had you not spent all of the time going through documents. And you want to emphasize that, for example, you handle the document review with ultimate thoroughness and a well-structured work plan, so that you would be able to meet deadlines efficiently and give the best information you can for the final product, whether it's a motion, a presentation, or a memo. So, and you definitely want to emphasize that that final product would not have been possible had you not done the work you did, right? There you go, you're adding value. I'm switching positions for you. Back to my point about big accomplishments and making sure that you are keeping tab on the things you have accomplished over the year. I know that that's not something we have time to do necessarily, so I want to encourage you guys to keep a journal or just a sheet where you can contribute, add to over the course of the year, and record every good thing that you've done, whether it's small or big, you know, and doing it on a daily basis or even a monthly basis if you can will help you tremendously by the end of the year. Trust me, because then you will not have to think about what you want to write on the self-eval, right? It'll come naturally. It's kind of like timekeeping. Like if you are bad at timekeeping day by day, then at the end of the month, you have to make up all of that time that you did not enter in your timesheet, right? And we all know that's horrible because it's so hard to think about, well, what did I do the first of this month? I have no idea. I don't even know what I ate yesterday for lunch. So how can you possibly remember 30 days worth of what you did? Same for self-eval. If you had no track of what you did every day in a year, then on that last day of the year, you're gonna have to remember those 365 or 364 days of work that you did and come up with information from those days that you can input into the self-eval. Save yourself the trouble of that and keep a journal, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you, of all your big accomplishments. And ultimately, this will help you with your resume as well, because as you update your resume at the end of every year or at the end of every 6 months, you'll be able to see right away what you should include and what are the things to mention in your resume to enhance your professional background and all of that information. So I want to also note that some of you watching may not be attorneys, but the tips I provide here are applicable to you too, like tracking your accomplishments. Any little accomplishment matters. Don't overlook the things that didn't generate money for your organization. And even if it's like a very small project that you took on that only took 2 hours or whatever it is small projects are for your firm, be sure to mention those small projects as well, because you don't know what's going to resonate with your boss. And so anytime you put in something more, there's more chances that your boss will find that super helpful and see you as a great team player. Now I'm going to go on to my second big point here. Is sometimes the self-evals will ask you, what were your weaknesses or what were your shortcomings? We hate to talk about that, right? And so I generally go by the rule that I'm not going to talk too much about it or even mention it at all unless the self-eval asks for that kind of thing. Because frankly, I think most organizations nowadays, especially law firms or big organizations, will keep tabs on what they were not happy with in terms of your performance, right? If you did something horrible that your boss saw, trust me, your boss will remember that. And maybe more likely than not, they will point it out to you right away, right? And that's kind of, I think, the style that organizations are taking is like that immediate feedback, especially if there was something really egregious that an employee did. So let's say you forgot a filing deadline, just completely forgot. I'm sure your boss is going to remember that. So no need to mention that again to your boss. What I would do in a self-eval in a situation like that is show that, yes, you made this big mistake. It won't happen again. And show how you've improved after you made that mistake. So that way you spin a negative into a positive. And that's how you should generally treat your self-evals if they ask for shortcomings or weaknesses, is spin a negative into a positive. So if you are asked, you know, what areas of improvement do you see that you can work on, say something not terribly awful, of course, be truthful though, be authentic, but then also flip it around and show that you've become a better person from that mistake. Right, so let's say you're somebody who always has typos in your writings or your deliverables. Just say, I'm really working on it. I've started taking classes to improve my spelling, to know better how to use the spelling check functions in the different document creation applications that you use. things like that. It will really show that, again, you are a go-getter, you want to be better, and you are a team player on top of that. In that, you know, you don't mind that, yes, you make mistakes, and you acknowledge that you make mistakes, and you try to improve. And that is really important to managers and supervisors as well. And on this point about talking about your shortcomings, I definitely want to emphasize that don't use this portion of the self-eval to downplay any of your accomplishments. Your accomplishments are yours. Own up to them. Don't say, oh, it was no big deal. I mean, as women tend to do, don't do that. Just own up to it, be really confident, just acknowledge that you are really good. And for example, this is something that I think happens to a lot of us women who are in challenging fields like law. You do something great and then you notice, oh, well, shoot, I, misspelled the person's name, right? We're very nitpicky because we are attentive to detail. Now, don't let that overshadow the fact that you created a great final product, you created a great brief or a great memo or a great deliverable. It has mistakes in it, sure, but we all make mistakes, right? Nobody's perfect. So, the fact that there's one typo or one page that was wrongly labeled, that doesn't mean anything. So don't use that in the section where you have to talk about your shortcomings, because you don't want to overshadow your great accomplishments with these really minuscule details. Don't feel bad about them. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just enjoy the fact that you did something really great. So those are my tips. And if this was too long for you to watch the whole thing, I'll give you a quick summary. My two biggest points here are: don't overlook the small accomplishments, right? The small things that you do for your organization, those matter. Don't discount them. And you did something great, even if it didn't end up creating any revenue for your company, doesn't matter. You did something great. Mention it. Again, you're treating the self-eval like a resume, so pad it to the extent you can. That's number one, big tip. And then the other takeaway from this video is, be sure that you are not overshadowing your accomplishments with small mistakes or small shortcomings. Again, I think most managers know what your weaknesses are, and they'll probably tell you right away what your weaknesses are. And definitely no need to play down your accomplishments because you made these very small mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And I realized I didn't mention another tip that I have regarding tracking your accomplishments. If you're having a hard time figuring out what great things you did over the year, check your calendar, check your Outlook or any other email application you use, check your emails, although that could be really strenuous. So instead of checking emails, maybe just check the files you created in your document management system or the filings you did, So those are other ways you can try to rebuild that history if you haven't been keeping track of it. So I hope this video was useful. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button below because it really helps my videos get promoted to a wider audience so more women and more like-minded professionals can get the tips I've provided here. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell down below, the red button and the bell, so that next time I post a video, you'll be the first one to know about it. Thanks so much for watching.